Respect is the foundational word of Calvary Community Church. When we were going to church in Great Falls, my pastor Harry Nesbitt said everybody has a message in them. So with that in thought, and another pastor telling me that each church has its own message, so I began to wonder what the message of Calvary Community Church was. I was injured in a logging accident. The world was pretty screwed up in my eyes that day. It was a cold April day and it was snowing and it was wet. We were behind, taxes were due. One of our employees had quit. Forest Service come up and said, "You can't work here anymore, it's too muddy, you have to go home." So my chainsaw wasn't running and I was really angry at the whole world. A lot of times people don't want to admit they're angry, but I was angry. And I sawed down this tree, and my saw was not running well, and I was upset with it, and I was fiddling with it, trying to get it to run right. And all of a sudden, the lights went out. When I figured out what had come wrong, I was trying to stand up, and I was spitting pine needles out of my mouth. The saw had died, and it took me a minute to figure out that a tree had hit me. Standing behind me was a dead tree that I hadn't sawed down, but it was kind of leaning in the tree that I had, and the roots broke loose, and it tipped over and hit me and drove my face into the mud. My first thought was, Jesus, I am so sorry. I just didn't feel like I could be tough enough to live in a wheelchair and be incapacitated the rest of my life. The guy I was working with that day, unfortunately he was there because a lot of times I was alone, figured out that something wasn't right because I wasn't moving around, and he came over and he said, "You don't look so good." And I said, "I don't feel so good." And he asked me what happened, and he kind of showed me because I still dazed what had happened. And he went and got his skidder and he drove it over and he put the blade right down in the dirt. And I tried to climb up on the blade, but it was just even more than I could do. And he finally kind of lifted me up and got me up there and took me up to the landing where the pickups were and took me home. Let me say right here, when you have a back injury, do not abuse the person. We did everything wrong. But by God's grace, I was okay. He got me in the house and I laid down on the floor and I thought, if I can just get warm, I'll be all right, because it was a snowy, wet day. And my wife wasn't around. We kind of determined she had went to deliver some fence posts, so he was looking for the phone book to call somebody, and I said, "I'll get up and get it." Well, I couldn't get up, so he said, "That's it, I'm calling the meat wagon," which he did, and the ambulance came, and then they did everything right. They taped me to a board and hauled me off to the hospital. So I really felt bad. I really felt like, my time on earth had come to an end almost, because I would never financially recover from this type of an injury. As I laid in the hospital that night, I just was so depressed and sad about what had happened. But the next morning, my pastor came and visited, and a Catholic priest that was a friend of mine, or actually his brother, came and prayed with me, and somebody from the Calvary Church in Great Falls come and prayed with me and stayed with me in my room. And the doctor had said, you're going to be here about 3 months. I said, I can't be here 3 months. And in 3 days I walked out of that hospital. And it's nothing short of a miracle. But the first call I got in the hospital wasn't what I expected. I'd been in a business dispute with one of my customers, and he claimed he had paid me, and I claimed he hadn't, and we didn't know how to resolve it. And he kind of walked off mad, and I didn't know what had ever happened. And in the hospital, he called me, and he said, "I am so sorry you got hurt. What can I do to help you?" His phone call totally changed my life, because I'd grown up in this charismatic renewal thing in the 70s, and I got pretty comfortable with our theology that we were right and the rest of the world was wrong, and when Jesus came back, they'd see how wrong they were, and he'd take us to heaven and leave them here. And I just really resent having those thoughts. Ever since he called me, I've seen different people that as Christians we need to respect one another. And as a rule, we get more worried about little theology things, or what we think, or how we do a service, or how we sing a song, or what song we sing, when the big picture is we need each other. So I began to tell people that we need to respect one another. We might not agree on everything, but we need to respect each other, because if Jesus lives in you and Jesus lives in me, and I condemn you, I'm condemning Jesus. Now, a lot of people don't like this message because they want to be right. But if it's one thing I learned in this accident, it's that I'm okay by grace. It isn't because I was so smart and I did such a good job logging and was such a good businessman. It was because God was gracious to me. God gave me a miracle when I needed it. And so even today, foundationally, I just want Christians to get along. I don't want them to fight about little things that we're probably not even really sure about. Just little church arguments that we always have. My denomination's better than yours. I'm smarter than you are. I know more about it than you do. And it's just foolishness, because I think it makes the world look at the church and say, I don't need that. I don't need that cantankerous, mean spirit that sometimes in churches. So I just encourage everybody to walk with respect to fellow believers, because not only are you respecting them, you're respecting God. Not a lot of scriptures in the Bible about respect, but if you take a synonym honor and start looking at honor, that's what the Bible's about. Even in the 10 Commandments, honor your mother and your father. That's what's wrong in our world today. There's no respect and there's no honor. That's why our politics are so screwed up. We need respect, and we need it today.